Today we're very happy to welcome as our guest speaker Swami Atmajnanananda, of the resident minister of the Vedanta Society of Greater Washington, D.C. He joined the Ramakrishna order in 1981, has a PhD in Oriental Studies from the University of Pennsylvania, and is a highly regarded scholar of Indian philosophy. The subject of his talk today is From Doubt to Realization.
I have to confess that it's a little nostalgic for me to be here. This was one of the very first centers that I ever came to. And of course, we all have a very special regard for this center as being the very first center of our order, not even the first center in the West, before Bellarmine was established. This is a New York center in 1894. Swamiji came here from Washington, D.C. He had some idea of starting a center in Washington, and then he was called back to New York and started the center here. So, and I'm remembering also when I came here on Swamiji's birthday in 1975, and Swami Pavitranandaji was here, and speaking on Swamiji, and I'll never forget, he started by saying, Swamiji was so great, and then he was speechless. He just stood there for almost a minute or two until he could regain himself and start speaking again. And then, of course, many of you know that I had such a very close relationship with Swami Tathagataranandaji. Just going into his room now was very emotional for me. So many memories came back, and I think it was really shortly after he came, when I first met him, I came up with, some of you may remember Michael Fell. We came up together and had lunch with him. That was the very first time I met him. And he used to come to our center every year. As long as his health was good, when we were in Washington, every summer he would come for a week or so. So I had a very sweet and loving relationship with him. So all of these memories are coming back to me. And of course, now you have a wonderful new young Swami. So you should all be very happy about that also. The topic that I chose it, I actually have spoken on this many times before, a little bit out of guilt, because Swami Prabhanandaji, who was now the senior vice president of the order, many years ago requested me to write something on this topic. He was in charge of the Institute of Culture at that time, and they have a bulletin that comes out, and they have some articles in it, and I never did it. So I thought at least, because by the time I thought of getting around to it, he was back at Bellarmine as the general secretary, assistant general secretary. So I thought at least that I should make a talk out of it and speak on the same topic, because he liked this idea of how do we go from the early stages of spiritual life to something which we sort of understand as our basic belief system, and then we get some conviction about it and some realization. So basically I want to talk about this progression that we make in spiritual life. It's not always step by step. It's not always that we do one and then we graduate from that and we do the next. This doubt for some people will leave in the beginning. They'll have conviction from the very beginning. Other people, the doubt will go all the way to the end, and they won't get conviction until the very end. But still, I think there's some logic to this progression, and for me it's helpful to help sort things out. What stage are we at in spiritual life? This beginning stage in spiritual life, we shouldn't think is for the people who are coming in the first 6 months. I remember reading something by Swami Ashokananda, a very nice thing. He said, don't think that there's anything wrong with being a beginner in spiritual life. Most of us are still beginners until we have some realization. This is the beginning stage for us. So if we feel we've been in Vedanta so many years and still we have doubts and questions and we're not very firm in our conviction and things, this is perfectly natural. This is the way things work. Until we get some really high type of experience, we can expect there to be some questioning and some doubts, and it can turn out to be a very positive thing. So I want to go through one by one some of these ideas And I am going to use the Vedantic terms, Sanskrit terms, because some of the English equivalents, they carry a lot of baggage with them. Many words like faith and belief or grace or something, because of Judeo-Christian concepts and things, that they'll have their own special significance to them. So I want to try to separate it from that. So I'll be using the Sanskrit terms, and we'll be starting with Shraddha. Now, the title of the talk is I should be starting with doubt, but doubt will turn out to be a very important part. There's samshaya, so samshaya and Shraddha. So these will be the first two things. Then we'll go to something called mata. Mata is a kind of, it can be just an opinion, it can be a belief system, it can be all sorts of things. Then darshana, it becomes a little bit fixed and established. Then from there we go to nishtha, that we get some, finally we found a system that we can have some very firm devotion to. Then vishwasa, then deep conviction comes. Now the Shraddha and Vishwasa, this is why I don't want to use English terms, because generally both are called faith. And I like this idea that one is at the beginning and the other is at the end. I'll try to explain that a little bit. Then Vyakulata, this is a term that Sri Ramakrishna uses over and over again. This means that we have the tremendous longing and restlessness, even agony of heart for God realization, which will lead immediately to something called anubhuti. It's a direct realization. So that's the goal of everything. So strictly speaking, we're starting with Shraddha, but I'll really bring in this idea of doubt there. Shraddha literally means that which is placed in the heart. Shrad and Harad in Hridaya, Sanskrit, and heart in English. They're all connected words. We don't have a very good, simple English translation for Shraddha. I like this idea of humility and sincerity and openness. Sometimes we simply say faith, but it doesn't tell us too much. It's a particular attitude that we need in spiritual life, where we're open, we're respectful, we approach a tradition with this understanding that we are the ones who need to learn something, that we're not the ones who know everything already. So this is the most important quality that we really should try to develop in spiritual life at the very beginning. If we don't have that, then we won't gain much from anything. In the Gita, we read over and over again, those who are lacking in Shraddha shouldn't even be told these truths of Vedanta, because it won't mean anything to them. There's an interesting Zen story that they tell. This young Zen student goes to the Zen master, and he says, I've come to you for instructions, give me some teachings. And the Zen master, he can see that this young man is full of pride. He has no Shraddha that way. He just talk. So he says, let's have a cup of tea first. So he starts pouring tea into the cup, and he keeps pouring and pouring, and he keeps running over and over and over, and the tea is going all over the floor and everything. So this boy says to him, why are you trying to fill a cup that's already filled? And he said, you see, you've come to me with that same thing. You're already filled up to here, and you want me to give you some type of instruction. You have to empty yourself first. That means we have to be open. So there has to be a certain amount of humility, a certain amount of this attitude that I may not understand something, but I won't dismiss it. I'll think that it's my inability to understand something. So it's the opposite of the very skeptical type of attitude. Some people, as soon as they hear something, they say, I don't believe it. It doesn't make sense, it's wrong. And then there's no hope. If we simply say, I don't understand it, let me see if I can understand it. This is that attitude of Shraddha. So the formal definition that we get, we find in Vedanta Sara, is that it's faith in the words or statements or teachings of Vedanta. Guru Upadishta, that which is taught by the Guru, Vedanta Vakyeshu, the words of all the teachings of the scriptures and everything, and the Guru also. So faith in the teaching of the scripture and faith in the Guru. These are the very beginning things. And it's interesting that the definition says Vishwasa. So here we have that belief and conviction and faith and everything, but not this real conviction that will come at the very end. Now I want to talk about the role of samshaya, of doubt, in the Shraddha, because very often we think that if we doubt or question something, that we're lacking in faith. Now, Sri Ramakrishna had the exact opposite feeling about this. He wanted people to test him. He didn't want anybody to accept anything if they didn't understand it. There's an interesting conversation we read in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, where Thakur is giving some teaching, and one devotee's friend is not exactly arguing, but putting up some opposite ideas and something, and the friend says to his friend, "Why don't you accept his words?" So Thakur gives a good scolding to him. He says, "Why should he accept my words if he doesn't understand them? Let him reason it out, let him think about it." So he never wanted people just to accept something because he said it or they read it without understanding it. That won't be Shraddha. So this samshaya, this doubt, can be a very important part of the development of Shraddha. It can also be a killer in spiritual life. If we have this type of doubt that doesn't allow us to go forward, then that's the end of it. We have this samshayatma vinashiti, this expression in the Gita, that somebody whose very nature is like that, who's just an absolute skeptic, who nihilist, doesn't believe in anything, they're destroyed. Then the whole life will become miserable. So this doubt, it's okay to have questions and doubts and things. Most of us will have doubts and things we don't understand up until the very end. And we have to accept that this is fine. In the Upanishads, we read that these doubts will absolutely be removed only with the highest realization. So we can expect to have some of these, and we'll see the different examples we have of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, how they were so different in their attitudes this way. We'll take Latu Maharaj, Swami Atmajnanananda. He had such faith in the words of Sri Ramakrishna that whatever Thakur said to him was absolutely true. He didn't question anything. The story that we know best is one evening, Sri Ramakrishna called for Latu Maharaj, and somebody said he's sleeping at an odd hour, probably early evening or something. So he said, "Wake him and call him to me." So he came and he said, "Latu, if you're sleeping at this hour of the day, when will you meditate? How will you realize God?" And then he said that this nighttime is the best time for meditation. Probably was just early after dark. So Latu Maharaj determined then and there that he would never sleep at night. So he said, then I got and I sat down and I felt drowsy and sleepy. So I threw cold water on my face. I got up, I walked around, and with great effort, I spent the whole night in meditation. And he said, from that time onward, I would catch a little sleep during the day, take a nap here and there, and the whole night. And he did that. The rest of his life, the whole night, he would remain awake, just at one simple statement that Sri Ramakrishna made. Then we have the others who were well educated. Latu Maharaj, he was just a village boy, orphan boy, village boy. He was a servant in the house of Ramchandra Datta. The others were all well educated in Western style and learned Western philosophy and Christianity. They went to missionary schools and everything. So they had a whole completely different attitude towards things. I'll just read one thing from the great master, Swami Atmajnanananda. He wrote, "Those people who critically analyze the events of the master's wonderfully unique life will ultimately find their power of judgment baffled, stupefied, and spellbound. We also had no lack of doubts." This "we" means those who came, especially who had been with the Brahmo Samaj, because they were taught that all this bowing down to images and things like that, this was all superstition and everything. So he said, we also had no lack of doubts, and we think that at present no one would dare to test the Master as we did. It often happened that many of us who doubted the Master and challenged him were defeated, and we had to hang our heads in shame. So they tested him. They had their doubts, their questions. Another story, well-known story, is about Swami Yogananda. He was then, before he was a Swami Yogin, he lived in Dakshineshwar. He was the one who lived closest to Sri Ramakrishna, just in the village of Dakshineshwar. And he used to come very often, and sometimes he would spend the night there. Now, Sri Ramakrishna gave one of his blistering attacks against lust and greed. So it was fine. He accepted everything. But then, when he went to sleep, he would sleep sometimes in the floor in Thakur's room or on the outside veranda. Many of them did. He saw in the middle of the night, Sri Ramakrishna got up and leaves the room and starts walking north towards where? The Nahabad. Who was in the Nahabad? Holy Mother. Then he said, this terrible thought came into my mind. Is it possible? By the daytime, he's warning us against lust and greed and all of that, and then at night he goes to visit his wife in the Nahabad. So he said that he couldn't help himself. He had to position himself in a place where he would see what was happening. So he went to the side a little bit, and he sees that Sri Ramakrishna goes, of course, right past the Nahabad into the Pine Grove. The Pine Grove was a big bathroom in those days. There was no other place to go. So he goes, then he comes back, and the yogin, as if he was frozen there, knew that Sri Ramakrishna would understand the whole thing. So Thakur came back and saw him standing there, and he said, yogin, so you were testing me. You wanted to see where I went. And then he said, test a sadhu by day and by night. Only then should you follow his teachings. So he wasn't the least bit offended by any of that. Of course, the best example is Swami Vivekananda himself. Swamiji questioned Sri Ramakrishna at every turn. Even after being with him for so many years, he used to say, oh, he still goes there, meaning the Kali temple. Yeah, he couldn't imagine, after all the high realization and samadhi, he still goes and bows down before an image and everything. So Swamiji took the longest to come around, we can say, because he had such strength of mind that he could never claim that he accepted something if he didn't really accept it. And he had to fully understand it. This was the greatness of Swamiji. So he said, let none regret that they were difficult to convince. I fought my master for 6 years with the result that I know every inch of the way. Every inch of the way. And really, it was literally 6 years, because it was just up until a few days before Sri Ramakrishna passed away. Another incident we all know. During this period, Swamiji used to sit, Narendra used to sit by Sri Ramakrishna's bed, and everyone else would be gone, just the two of them. And he gave him all sorts of instructions. We don't know all of the details of it, but how to keep all these boys together and make sure they don't go back home, keep this monastic institution, whatever it was. But one day, Narendra looked at Sri Ramakrishna, and he saw that he was in this terrible agony. It's because his throat cancer was so terrible, there were no painkillers and things in those days, that even the skin was all broken through, and it was unbearable. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, of course, could raise the mind above it sometimes, but other times he used to say that even the avatar has a human body. There'll be suffering that way also. Rama wept for Sita, he used to say that way. So this thought arose in Swamiji's mind. He said, if in the midst of this tremendous pain and suffering, he can declare himself a divine incarnation, only then will I believe him. Now, you couldn't think something in front of Sri Ramakrishna without him knowing what you were thinking. That was the problem with him. So Thakur looked at him, and he said, Naren, even now you have doubts. So there's doubts, even now. He who was Rama and he who was Krishna is now in this body, Sri Ramakrishna. And then he said, but not in your Vedantic sense. That means you can say, everyone, he can say that. I can say that, you can say that. God dwells within each and every person, but in a special sense. He meant as the avatar. And again, Sri Ramakrishna didn't mind, especially with Swamiji. He used to say, test me as the money changer tests his coins. They would bite into it to see if it's real metal. Don't believe a word that I say without testing me. There's another very important element of doubt with regard to conviction and with regard to any philosophical system. We have a very nice example in Western philosophy. There's a great French philosopher named Rene Descartes. He's very well known for his statement, I think, therefore I am. And he wanted to establish a philosophical system which started with one philosophical truth that could not be doubted. So other philosophical systems can be based on speculation or experience or something, but this, he said, he wanted to find what is the one thing that we cannot doubt. And he said we can't doubt our own existence because the fact of doubting it even proves our existence. And he starts out with this idea that can we even say now that what we see is real, very similar to our Vedantic position. Do we know is this the waking state, dream state, all of that? I want to read a little of this passage because this was one of the first things that I read. I was a philosophy student in college before I knew about Vedanta. And it's very interesting. The first paper that I wrote, I remember very clearly, was called The Reality of Dreams. So I was so shocked when I came to Vedanta and I said, oh, that we have this farmer who says this dream world is just as real as the waking state and everything. So I remember very clearly this one passage, so I went back and found it. It's very nice. It starts out that Descartes is talking about how we're sitting here now, everything's so real, we can't question anything. The chair that we're sitting on, the clothes that we're wearing, who will possibly doubt or question any of that? And then he says, though this be true, I must nevertheless here consider that I'm a man and that consequently I am in the habit of sleeping and representing to myself in dreams those same things, or even sometimes others less probable, which the insane think are presented to them in their waking state. How often have I dreamt that I was in these familiar circumstances, that I was dressed and occupied this place by the fire, when in reality I was lying undressed in bed. At the present moment, however, I certainly look upon this paper with eyes wide awake. The head which I now move is not asleep. I extend this hand consciously and with express purpose, and I perceive it. The occurrences in sleep are not so distinct as all this. Then he says, but I cannot forget that at other times I have been deceived in sleep by similar illusions, and attentively considering those cases, I perceive so clearly that there exist no certain marks by which the state of waking can ever be distinguished from sleep, that I feel greatly astonished, and in amazement I almost persuade myself that I am now dreaming. Yeah, there's a nice statement, I think it's from Lao Tzu, that he says, last night I dreamt that I was a butterfly, and it was so real to me that now I'm wondering, am I a man who dreamt I was a butterfly, or am I a butterfly who's dreaming I'm a man? Right. So our Vedanta philosophy, according to the analysis of the three states, we find this in Mandukya Upanishad and everything, will say that the one thing that cannot be doubted is the doubter, we can say. Now, for Descartes, this meant that the ego sense, the I. Vedanta, we go further and say, no, it's consciousness, because even this I is just an object for consciousness. So we'll take everything back to this pure consciousness alone. So then we can say that Brahman, Atman, that real self-consciousness, alone is real. So again, starting out by doubting the ultimate reality of anything that can be perceived, anything that is an object, that doubt of everything else is the proof for the existence of the seer. So the seer and the seen. Of course, your Swami here now, he's the master of this. This Dirigdrishya Viveka, all of that. So it starts out with the same type of doubt. So now we move to this idea that we have some grounds for a philosophical system. Now, some people don't care for this and some people don't need it. Those who have more of a devotional nature. Vedanta, we usually use our brains too much. So we want to have some system that makes sense to us. So we get these two terms, mata and darshana. Now, I want to talk about this mata. It's not a term that we use very much or hear very much about, except in Sri Ramakrishna's probably most famous statement, Joto Mat Toto Pat. Mat is just the Bengali version, mata. And we see it's used in so many different ways. Generally, we take this to mean as a faith tradition. Joto Mat Toto Pat, so it doesn't matter what religion that we follow, what faith tradition that we have, that they all lead to the same goal. But this mata, it can just be an idea, it can be an opinion, it can be wrong. Very often that we'll discover that this was something we thought was true, it's not true. So this can be a mata. We get the darshana, and then it has to be, it's not much different, but it has to be a little bit more grounded in philosophical thinking. So this distinction between, say, mata and darshana, this distinction between an opinion and a deep-seated belief is something that's very, very important. Most of the problems we have among the different religious traditions is that what should be considered our view of things is taken to be the final word of things. And that everybody has to accept it. You have a different understanding of something, that means you're wrong and we're right. So it's very important to understand this very subtle distinction. And we have a very beautiful statement that was made by Swami Turiyananda. Swami Turiyananda was very interesting because of all the direct disciples, he was considered to be the real jnani. He was the one who had this tremendous knowledge of the Upanishads and everything, but he also had a tremendous love for Divine Mother, which came out when he came to the United States. We see this when he was in California and the Shanti Ashram and everything, and this devotional side came out very much with him. Anyhow, he was very, very much beloved by all of the devotees in San Francisco. There was one woman, I'd answer, by the name of, he called her Ujjwala. One afternoon, this is from Spiritual Talks, one afternoon, Swami Turiyananda and Ujjwala just happened to meet. He asked her, Ujjwala, are you deep or shallow? Do you live and die in words, or do you live and die in principles? Before she could think of an answer, he added, this is the important part, in matters of opinion, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand firm as a rock. And Ujjwala later commented, that was all, but he had given me, in a moment, guidance for a lifetime. So it is very, very important for us to ask that question. Is it a matter of opinion with us? Or is this something that we're willing to say, no, I want to stick with this is the firm truth, I won't deviate from this. Now, when Sri Ramakrishna makes his statement, Joto Mat Toto Pat, I think that we're missing the point if we restrict it just to different religious traditions. I think we have to take it as each and every, even philosophical position that we have. I think we have to take it very much with regard to the different schools of Vedanta. That if we're dualists, the non-dualists will often say that the dualists, they don't realize the highest truth. That they're stuck at a lower level. As Ramakrishna is saying, you may call it a lower level, this is also a path to God. And the qualified non-dualists, all of them, this is also a mata, even though it's a darshana. It's a philosophical school, but this word darshana, I had an argument with my philosophy professor once. He said that a darshana doesn't mean the vision. We generally think that these philosophers that created the darshana, it was out of their direct experience. And he said it means a drishti, it means a point of view. And now I see he was right. I mean, it could have been that they were all real, God-realized souls. Shankaracharya, Ramanuja, Madhva, all of them. But even then, this was from their angle that they saw these things. So from that point of view, it's also a type of mata, we can say. People foolishly try to pin Sri Ramakrishna down sometimes. They'll point to this example of the bell fruit that Thakur gives and says, oh, then he was a follower of Vishishta Dvaita Vedanta. Because that's one of the examples that they use and everything. They completely missed the point that every time he spoke about a different philosophical position, or it was for the sake of those who were suited to that and would benefit by that and would follow that. His mind was so beyond all of these things because he lived in that realm of direct realization. He used to say the mind has to come down so far just to utter Om. What to speak of talking about Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, and all of that. So from our point of view, we may holler to the skies, yes, this world is like a dream. It doesn't mean anything. If we understand that this is a philosophical attitude that can be helpful for us and maybe not helpful for somebody else, then it's much surer ground that we're standing on. So for Sri Ramakrishna, everything was a question of two things. One was what we like. Ruchi Bheda, he used to use this expression, that we all have different taste for things. And then Hajam Shakti, we all have a different power of digestion. So he would give the example of the mother with the fish. So all of these religious systems, philosophical systems, different schools and all of that are different preparations of the same fish. The mother knows which child likes what type of fish and which child can digest that type of fish. We may like fried food. I like fried food, but I get indigestion from it. Of course, I take some medicine so I can eat it. But many people, and there's a big problem, many people are so fond of this Advaita Vedanta. Yes, this world is a dream. And they can't digest it. And Swamiji uses that language, undigested Vedanta. Yeah, he uses that language. There was once a sadhu that came to Sri Ramakrishna, and the sadhu used to tell all sorts of things. He wasn't very honest. So Thakur called him out. He said, I hear you say all of these things that are not really true. He said, if this world itself is unreal, do my words have to be real? So Sri Ramakrishna said, I spit on that type of Vedanta. And he used to actually spit. He would do, yeah. So anyhow, we start to understand what all of our precious philosophical beliefs amount to. It's just something that we should understand is good for us and helpful for us, which may change. Also that we can grow out of things. Swamiji says in the path of devotion, we all start out as dualists. Then this love is like a cord which brings us closer and closer. Then we feel some type of oneness in union, and ultimately we may feel that there's no separation whatsoever. So a belief system is something that we choose. I have a very strong conviction about this, that most of us believe something that we want to believe and we like to believe and makes us feel good. Not that all of us are so rational that if we come to a certain conclusion and it doesn't appeal to us, that we'll stick to it. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It should be something that appeals to us. Ruchi Bheda. We all have a different taste of things. So to me, it's important to understand that philosophy is just a means to an end, that it's not the ultimate goal, any of this. I remember a very important incident in my life that took place a long time ago. This would be 1973 or something like that. I approached one of our swamis. He was talking about this very high philosophy, Brahman alone is real, and the world is unreal, and because of Maya, this Brahman appears to be this universe. Very good. So I had a very intelligent question. I said, well, if Brahman alone is real, then where does Maya come from? Right? We say there's only one thing, but then now you're saying there are two things. Right? So anyhow, he gave a very nice explanation that the Maya itself will disappear with realization and all of that. A long explanation. I thought it was very nice and everything. But afterwards he said, see what a beautiful idea that is. And that's what struck me. It's just an idea. That the truth of Brahman is something that we realize. And every description is a limitation. We're really, through the lens of this very limited mind, we're trying to explain something that defies all type of explanation. So it's very good for us to understand that what we believe is very much what appeals to us and what makes sense to us and what we like. I heard a story of one of our old sadhus, that whenever he would get in some discussion, philosophical discussions, Swamis like to do that. They'll go back and forth. One will defend qualified non-dualism, the other will be a staunch non-dualist. So finally the Swami at the end would say, what you said is perfectly true. Theek bole chu. He'd say, Tomar mate, according to you. In your opinion, in your opinion, what you say is perfectly true. So now we get this understanding of what exactly does it mean to think that no philosophical system has any ultimate claim on the absolute truth. Absolute truth. Thakur used to say, what is Brahman like? Brahman is like Brahman. You can't say anything. Any other analogy is just restricting it. He said, what does ghee taste like? Ghee tastes like ghee. What else can we say? You know, sometimes they say everything tastes like chicken. What is this frog meat? It tastes like chicken. What is that? It tastes like chicken. But nothing, we won't know what anything tastes like until we taste it. Then we understand that all of these descriptions and everything are just descriptions with the help of this very limited mind and understanding that we have. Now, we have to reach a point, though, where we don't simply say that, well, this is an opinion, every other opinion is just as good. We have to reach a point where we say, yes, this is the one that appeals to me. This is the one that I want to stick with. This is the one that I think will be the best path. Of course, with the help of the guru, all of that. This is the best path for me. Then we reach the stage which is called Nishtha. Nishtha. Sri Ramakrishna gives a very beautiful illustration of this. He says, when the daughter-in-law, when she moves into the home of her husband, this is, of course, the traditional way in India, that she will serve all of the family members with great love and great respect. She'll serve their food, bring water for washing their hands, all of those things. But with her husband, she has a different type of relationship. But it's through her husband she has a relationship with all of the others. So Nishtha has two sides. One is we're firmly devoted to our own spiritual path, which may mean Ishta Devata, whoever we look upon as our kind of representative in spiritual life, Sri Ramakrishna or Holy Mother, or Krishna, or Rama, or Durga, anything like that. And respect for every other Ishta Devata of every other tradition. Because we're all related. It's all part of that same family. So this is the way he defines this nishtha, a very firm devotion to our spiritual path. Or he gives another example. If we're digging for water and we find that we hit rock, then we go in another place. We start digging, then we find sand. We go in another place and the spade won't go through it, and we'll never reach water. So we pick one spot. This is the one that we're going to stick to, nishtha. And unless we stay there and keep digging, we have rocks, it doesn't matter. We'll pull them out, sand, doesn't matter. That we'll never get water. So this is this example of nishtha that he gives. Now this nishtha can be a little bit wide also. We don't want to be narrow in spiritual life. There's another nice example that we read about in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, when Hanuman entered into the assembly where Rama was, and in front of everybody else, Rama asked Hanuman, how do you look upon me? And this is a very nice way of understanding the three schools of Vedanta, and also what we mean by nishtha, because no one had it more than Hanuman, this devotion to Rama. So Hanuman gave this very intelligent answer. We may think he was just a monkey, but he was very, very intelligent. So he said, it depends. You're asking me how I look upon you. It depends on my mood. He said, sometimes I have this body consciousness. So, deha buddhya. If I have deha buddhi, then I have this dasya attitude. So he says, deha buddhya, tu dasoham, then I am your servant. Then he said, sometimes I think of myself as a jiva, individual soul. And then he says, then at that time, then I'm an angshaka. Then I feel I'm a part of you. Then he says, but when I have this atma buddhi, I feel that I'm the self, then there's no difference between the two of us, that we're one and the same. Now, we pay a lot of attention to these first three, but the last line to me is the real killer. The last line is the good one. Then he says it that, iti me nishtita matihi. Matihi is like mata. He says, this is my very firm conviction. Now, what does it mean? What is he referring to? Is it just the last one? Or is it all of them? Yeah. So I think his firm conviction is that, how do I look upon you? It depends. And they're all true, they're all equally valid. And for Hanuman, he liked the first one best. So we can't say that this Advaitic attitude, this is the highest, this is the best. Unless you have that, then you're not a very intelligent person or anything. But Hanuman had all of those attitudes, and he saw that each one was equally true, depending upon the state of our mind at that time. So now we move a little bit to this idea of darsana, that now, so we have some philosophical understanding. This is nishtha. We can see part of our worldview will be to see the truth of all the different schools. And that to understand that at different times we sit for meditation, we can be a non-dualist. Close our eyes and say the world doesn't exist. When we want to serve others, we say everything is real, God dwells within everyone. So this can all be combined to form our spiritual path. We can have this nishtha for that. And then, if by God's grace, we become convinced of the truth of this. So this is through spiritual practice, with this idea of nishtha, then this vishwasa comes, vishwas. And Sri Ramakrishna says that this is the final word in spiritual life, in spiritual practice. It's not the final illumination, but we're really on firm ground. And what is this conviction that we have? This conviction doesn't have to be that my spiritual path is the best, anything like that, but this is the path for me. God can be realized through this path. That I am convinced of the truth of this path for me. This very firm type of conviction. We see that in many of our monks. We were talking in the car coming over about Swami Atmajnanananda, how he had such unwavering conviction that there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the words of Thakur were 100% true, teachings of Holy Mother, that if we follow them, that we won't make any mistake in spiritual life. That absolute type of conviction puts us on very safe ground. I remember Swami Swananji telling me many times, telling many people, that conviction itself is a type of realization. That we're so close to it, that we're so convinced of the truth of it, we can practically taste it. So what does this lead to? This leads to bhakulata. Then the tremendous desire comes to have that realization, to have that experience. For Sri Ramakrishna, this is the ultimate experience. All of our spiritual life and spiritual practice leads to this vyakulata. If we're looking for cause and effect, others might say that the jnani will say that the real instrument behind God realization, if we want to get rid of ignorance, then knowledge. The knowledge is the only thing that can remove ignorance. Devotee will say that the love of God is the only thing that can remove the ego. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that all of our spiritual practice is meant only for one purpose, to increase this yearning of heart. And that yearning of heart, vyakulata, is the instrument. It's that which will lead to God realization. So we go from this vyakulata to anubhuti. And this vyakulata, I was talking about the beginning stage. Beginning stage, if we take it to vyakulata, will be 99% of the way up. If we talk about climbing a ladder, then we'll go through all of the steps of the ladder. It'll be that last rung, that is vyakulata. From there, we can even look above. And Thakur says, like in the early morning, we see the pink color come in the sky. This arunodaya is a very beautiful expression that we don't see the sun yet, but we know that the sunrise is coming. So if we achieve this vyakulata, this tremendous longing for God, then we know that God realization is assured to us. And Thakur, this was how he had his first vision of Mother Kali. It wasn't through any specific spiritual practices or anything. It was just tremendous longing of heart. So this is spiritual journey, we can say, that we go through, beginning with Shraddha, which has to include doubt. If we start with a little doubt, then we can remove it at the very beginning. Otherwise, we may get to the end of spiritual life and say, was it really true? I simply accepted something because somebody said it's written in the scriptures that this has to be true. I never really thought about it too much. So we want to take care of that first. Then from this Shraddha, then everything grows. Then we get this faith, we get some understanding of things, then we get some devotion to our spiritual path, then some conviction comes, and this tremendous longing comes, and then God realization comes. Now, after God realization, will we understand everything? No. No. But we'll know that we don't have to understand everything. That'll be the nice thing. So Thakur says, you want to bathe in the Ganges. Does that mean you have to go all the way from Gomukh down to Gangasagar? Wherever you go, you've gone. You've touched it. You've achieved the highest goal of life. So these were some of the ideas that I wanted to discuss this morning. We'll have a song now, and then there'll be plenty of time for questions and things. So let me.
Namaste, Swamiji. I just wanted to know about your personal experience. Like, what made you go with Advaita Vedanta philosophy, or choose this path?
Yes, sometimes we wonder, do we choose a path or does the path choose us? Yeah, when we look back on our lives and we see that circumstances conspire against us to lead us in a certain direction. When I was young, college, I was a philosophy student, so I was always interested in philosophical questions and things like that. Then I was supposed to go to graduate school in philosophy, all Western philosophy. But I lost my enthusiasm a little bit. I just wanted to take some time off, and I worked for a while. And then I had this curiosity about Eastern philosophy and meditation and things like that. So with the little money that I saved, I took a trip to India. And I spent about 6 months in India at that time. And during my travels, when I first got to India, the first book I bought was a Gita. I knew a little bit, enough about Vedanta that I could do that much. And it was the edition that was published by Ramakrishna order. The Swami Swarupananda, who was the Swamiji's disciple, was the translator of that. And there was a little blurb, a quotation from Swami Vivekananda, that said Gita is a bouquet, like a bouquet of flowers, choicest flowers from the Upanishads. Anyhow, I remembered the name Vivekananda. Then later, I found myself in Chennai. In those days, it was just Madras. It somehow became Chennai. And it was my birthday, my 24th birthday. So I wanted to buy myself a present, so I walked into a bookstore, and I saw a small little book, Vivekananda, Teachings of Vivekananda. I remembered the name. So I bought that book, and I read that book, and I was just lifted up by that. He was just knocked off my feet, my Swamiji. Later I went to Calcutta. I stayed by chance I met a family of devotees. I lived with them for some time. We went to Bellarmat in Dakshineswar, and by the time I left India, I was a hardcore devotee. So, anyhow, there's a question in back.
And I'm a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. And my faith, I can say, as my child, I always I accepted Ramakrishna, the God. I try to realize, I don't know how much I realize. But I have some doubt in social orders and convictions developed by highly intellectual world and power, where my own principle of life is very hard to follow my own conviction that based on Thakur's realization, pure consciousness, to realize, use your reason, what is right or wrong, to live in this world, in a living world, to accept highly powerful. I understand they have to follow rules and orders in order to, activate the life. But some rules is hard to accept. And in this case, do you think my doubts, how can I remove those doubts in this world where they are manufactured by highly intellectual and highly powerful people? And I have also realized, Thakur, I believed completely in Thakur. There is a very problem. Then what is your advice in those doubts? Should I handle?
People who are trying to lead a spiritual life, who are sensitive people, who are honest people, who want to follow the teachings very sincerely, say Thakur says truthfulness, the austerity of the present age, who want to try to live a life like that, will never easily fit into society. There will always be conflict. There will always be some degree of compromise, and there will always be that question, to what extent are we willing to compromise? If it's for the welfare of the family and to keep the job and everything, then we have to balance one thing against the other. If we want to lead a perfectly pure life and everything, that means that we have to renounce everything. That's all. And even for a sadhu in this country, we don't have that luxury. We also have to conform and compromise a little bit, everything. So if you can keep your inner conviction and understand that these compromises that you're making are things that have a higher purpose. You're not doing it for a selfish reason, you're not doing it for name and fame or to get wealthy, this and that, but these are things that have to be done in society. Then I think it's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, but one interesting thing, this idea of vishwas, this idea of conviction, some people have it from the very beginning. Everyone is different that way. I admire people like that sometimes we'll see them and just, they'll have absolutely firm conviction. Maybe they grew up with it that way, maybe some samskaras, we don't know why exactly. But sometimes the spiritual life is very easy for these people, that they aren't always questioning and doubting themselves and everything. So everybody's a little bit different that way.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Pranam Maharaj, thank you for that lecture on doubt to realization, and quite consequently, I have a doubt.
Okay.
So, you mentioned that Madhvacharya, who was a proponent of dualism, had, as a person who was perfectly God-realized. And we recently had Ayan Maharaj come here and give a talk where he made a very important point that in a spiritual life, lazy harmonizing is not something favorable. Wherein we just say, all the philosophies are true, but without really knowing why do we think that they are true at the same time. So that brings this question. Swami Vivekananda was known for saying that, in the beginning you might start with Dvaita, but ultimately it has to lead to Advaita. That was kind of his firm conviction and his advice to a lot of people that we read. So now juxtapositioning that with the fact that Madhvacharya entirely propagated the path of dualism and still reached perfect God realization, as you said yourself, I just want to know, how would you explain this, or what would you attribute this to, the fact that the two philosophies are clearly different, and yet when each follows that philosophy to its completion, we believe that they have reached the exact same goal. So from that, should I understand that the actual accuracy or the truth of the philosophy is really not that important, and it's just like a stepping stone to come to Vishwasa?
This is what we mean by Jotama Totopad, that it is a path, that it's not God itself. Now, there was actually a section of this that I missed a little bit that is also important, where Thakur is explaining this Jotama Totopad, and he goes through the same thing that we all know, that God can be realized through different paths, that it's people calling water, some say pani, some say jal, some say agud, but the same substance is the same. But then at the end he says, do you know what the truth is? God has made different religions to suit different aspirants, times, and countries. All doctrines are only so many paths. But then he adds, a very important part, but a path is by no means God himself. We put too much emphasis on the path. Now, one thing that I think is also important is that we want to make a distinction between harmonizing and synthesizing or integrating. Harmonizing means that we accept difference. So Sri Ramakrishna used to give the example of somebody playing a musical instrument. One can just be the drone. He would say this was like the Brahma Samaji, the same thing over and over again. But others will like to go up and down and all sorts of different things like that. He's not saying that each one is playing the same note. Each one is playing a different note. But they work together. So this will be a harmony. Say the harmony of religions doesn't mean that we're saying that each religion is saying exactly the same thing. Very often we hear that, and it's not true. That's why they'll quarrel among themselves. What we're trying to say is that each one can be a vehicle to take one to the highest goal. Now, from the highest point of view, will everyone come back from that and say, now I see every path is true? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Someone may touch the elephant just on the trunk. Huh? Some may touch it on the ear and say, no, I know, it's like a big winnowing fan. So not necessarily. Sri Ramakrishna was unique. Not only did he go and see the whole elephant, but he went back and forth and touched each part in different times. So he knew everything. So even founders of religion, God-realized souls, they can have their own special emphasis and things like that. Now, I know very well that Swamiji had that theory. When he was in the United States, he requested, I don't know who, Alasingha maybe, someone to send him the three bhashyas, three commentaries of the three schools of Vedanta, and he wanted to show how we higher and higher and one leads to the other. Now, for Sri Ramakrishna, a devotional path, it's more a question of a devotional path. A devotional path doesn't necessarily mean a dualistic path. For Madhva, for the dualists, then they'll say, yes, you want to be a devotee, you have to realize God is something separate, or otherwise how can you have a relationship unless there's separateness? For Sri Ramakrishna, it was more that you have a sense of I, this ego, is laying on the top of the water like a stick, giving the impression that there are two sides, allowing you to have a relationship. So he could easily say that through this path of devotion, the stick of ego will disappear, then you'll end up with oneness. So that's an overall world view, we can say, that he had that way. The dualists will look at things a little differently. illustration that Sri Ramakrishna gives and the illustration that we find in some of the dualistic schools are both very beautiful and exactly opposite. I'll give you one example. Sri Ramakrishna says, or he asked the question, why does the sky appear blue from a distance? He said it appears blue from a distance because we're looking at it from far away. If we get closer and closer, we'll see that there's no color, or water. From a distance, it'll look a dark green or a blue or something. If we go close and we pick it up, and then we'll see that it has no color at all. So the closer we get to God, the more the attributes and forms and things will disappear, and we'll realize this nirguna aspect. Now, the followers of the Chaitanya school, they also have a very beautiful illustration that they use that gives the opposite conclusion. They say that Krishna is sitting and he sees from a distance somebody is coming. And he says, somebody is coming, and then he gets a little closer, he says, oh, I see it's a man who's coming. And he gets closer and closer, he can start to see features and this and that, and he gets close to him and he says, it's my Narada. This is my disciple Narada. So they say that this nirguna aspect of Brahman is because we haven't had that intimate relationship, we haven't seen it close up. When we see it close up, we'll see all of the different attributes and forms. So they'll say that this nirguna aspect is a lower aspect, it's more distant. Saguna will be the higher. Now, who will, if both are possible realizations, Thakur had both realizations. He realized the Divine Mother with form that way. Who's to say which one is higher? From a philosophical point of view, if we want to be very logical, we have to admit that this Nirguna Brahman, Advaita Vedanta, from that point of view, we can accept the truth of the two other schools. If we're dualists, we can't accept non-dualism. If we're non-dualists, we can accept dualism. Shankaracharya will say Vyavaharika point of view. From this common sense point of view, through the lens of the mind and with the ego and everything, we can live in a world where we see dualism, but we know that it's not absolutely true. So an argument can be made from the point of view of philosophy that there is a logical dialectic which will lead to non-dualism. And Swamiji believed that. Sri Ramakrishna seemed to believe it to a certain extent. But this is why I brought in Hanuman. That what is his final opinion? That it's all a question of, is that stick of ego there or not? And when that stick of ego disappears, there's no philosophy. That's the salt doll that goes to the bottom of the ocean. Then we can't say anything. We're merged in that. Now, when the dualists will have that highest point of view and come back down, the dualists will say, I achieved a state of union. Union means two, right? In a marriage, you can't have a marriage union without two. So union means two. The non-dualists will say, I realize my oneness with Brahman, that way. But in both cases, the salt doll is melted at that time. Who can say what really takes place? We come back down with the same mind, of course transformed, but still with the same type of understanding we had on the way up. So there's nothing absolute about any of these systems. This is my feeling, and I think what Sri Ramakrishna was trying to say. We may, as Vedantists and followers of Swamiji and everything, we may say that, yes, the Advaita Vedanta logically is more appealing to us. And from that point of view, we can see the truth of the other two. Some of the dualists will say, no, there's absolutely no sense in which you can ever say that the individual soul is one with the Brahman. Whereas the non-dualists can say, yes, from our ordinary point of view, when we have this ego sense, that ego itself is creating this difference, and that difference is real for the time being, but not ultimately real.
Thank you.
So it's a very good question, yeah. And Ayya Maharaj, he gives very nice explanations of these things. Yeah, he likes this type. I agree with him with a lot of this type of thinking and everything. Yeah.
Namaste, Swami. My name is Sachit. I had a question regarding the part that you said there are certain doubts that you have initially in the process of realization, and I'm personally facing that in the beginning stage. So like I feel like these are the kinds of doubts that cannot actually be solved by logic or reasoning. Or I'm saying that, is it possible for a devotee in the journey to get a taste of that experience in the beginning stages itself, like not the complete realization or something, but at least like a taste of it? Like, can I see any changes while I practice this?
Yeah. I think it's very common that we're granted the taste in the beginning. And sometimes it's frustrating because we have something and then we think, well, why did it leave me? Something like that. I liken this to the, I don't know if they do it anymore, in the old days, you opened a bank account and you'd get a free toaster. Huh? Right? Remember those days? They would do something like that. Then after a while, not only no free toaster, but you're paying monthly charges. What happened? We want a toaster every year. But in spiritual life, sometimes we get a glimpse, which can give us conviction, which is very important. Sometimes we don't. Everyone is different. If we get a little glimpse in the beginning, then of course it's very helpful, but a little frustration may take place also. That why doesn't it come back that way? Sometimes people without any doubt and seemingly have firm conviction are the ones that will give up everything. This is a very sad thing. Sometimes people have such tremendous faith that I get scared. I'll have people that will come to us and something good happens and they'll say, at Thakur's grace, I know it was. And then I think, what will they say if some tragedy comes? And sometimes it actually happens that people will say, I don't believe in Thakur anymore. How could this happen to me? Like that. So we have to temper things. It's good for us sometimes to even question, did this happen through God's grace? Was this my karma? Was this just chance? I don't know. This cause and effect is a mysterious thing. We can't really say that way. So it doesn't have to be an exact doubt, but we have to recognize it as something that is not really a conviction. We have such a desire to understand things. People are always asking that how does this universe, how is it projected out of Brahman, and Brahman remains unchanged? I mean, my goodness, we don't even understand, how a toaster works. We're supposed to understand how God creates this universe. And we completely ignore the hundreds and hundreds of times that Sri Ramakrishna says that who can understand the ways of God? Huh? And we have these beautiful songs of Ram Prasad and Kamalakanta, Ke Jane Kali Kamon. Who can say what Mother Kali is like? These are God-realized souls. And the song that Swamiji sang at the very end of his life, Shamamaki Amar Kalore. Yeah, what is the basic theme of this song? There's Kamalakanta, God-realized soul, great devotee of Mother Kali. I can't even say, is she really black? Is she white? Is she this color? I can't. Is she male? Is she female? And he says that thinking about all of these things, it just confuses the mind. Who can say, I don't understand anything? Even after some type of realization. Will we understand Maya after God realization? Maya is inscrutable. That's the most we can say. So Thakur is very clear that there's a certain type of reasoning, vichara. He says a certain type of reasoning that's not helpful. There's a certain type of reasoning we have to do. When we feel identified with the body, we ask ourselves, am I really just this body? That type of thing. But to try to think through reasoning and logic and arguments that we can understand these absolute truths of creation and all of that, it's ridiculous. And the sooner we realize it, the more we're relieved of that. So people are always asking me these questions, and I say, I don't know, and I don't care about it. Because I know that it can't be understood through this mind. And I know that even after God realization, if Thakur, if he wanted to, he could have told us. Right? He could have said, oh, it happens this way. Brahman one day sits down and says, may I become many. We read that in the Upanishad, Bahusyam. But do we take it literally? This is poetry. We don't know how, if Brahman alone is real, how does this universe come? What is Maya? It'll disappear. What is the nature of Maya? Inscrutable. That means it can't be understood. So a lot of doubts come, I think, from asking ourselves questions that don't have answers. And when we talk about removal of doubts, this Nishat, it means that we found a spiritual path that we feel convinced of, that this is the one that I'm willing to devote this life to. Whether I get to the end or I don't, I'm willing to do that. Swamiji said a very nice thing once. He said, how many lifetimes we've devoted to just enjoyment and pleasure and everything? Try one lifetime. What do you have to lose? You miss out, there'll be plenty more. Try this one time to just devote yourself to the highest realization that way. And the things that we question and doubt, we have to ask ourselves, are these questions that even have answers? And if we say, no, really not, then we just say, good. I'm going to have a big pile of things over here that I'm going to place in the unanswerable bin, and I'm not going to worry about them. Now, of course, I don't know what types of doubts you're talking about and everything, but if we have enough conviction in the beginning that this is the path for us, then we have to realize that some doubts do not disappear until God realization. Yeah? Chidyante sarvasam sharaya. That these doubts, when will they come? When we've realized the highest. Tasmin drishte paravare, when we've seen that which is both the transcendent and immanent, we've had the highest God realization, only then do all these doubts absolutely disappear. Before that, we still can have questions, because we don't know. What will God realization be like? We have no idea. So we just, we may have doubts about it, but we shouldn't have any doubt. This is why holy company is so important. Holy company is where we see whether it's a God-realized soul or not. We don't know that. We're foolish to judge and say, oh, this Swami was God-realized, this one isn't. But we can get the conviction that leading a very sincere, dedicated life of spiritual practice will yield tremendous fruits. That we see the calmness and peace and love for all beings. How Swami Tathagataraji had the power of love that he had. This comes as a result of spiritual life. If we have that type of conviction that this transformation will take place, then that should be enough. These other doubts, some of them will realize they're not very important. Some will realize that they'll remain with us to a certain extent until we reach that final goal.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Namaste, Swami. I feel pretty new in my spiritual path, and something I've been thinking about a lot is the concept of reincarnation. And when I think about it, I just get physically tired, like just thinking about living for so long. And you mentioned that, if you come across a belief or an idea, that to only hold on to it as truth at your stage to the extent that it's useful for you at that current stage. And if thinking about reincarnation just makes my body feel like so tired and full of dread, then should I not think on it much?
Don't bother about it. It's very secondary. It's very secondary. We should concentrate on this lifetime. Try to realize the highest in this lifetime. Even Swamiji says in one place that is still within the realm of postulate. This is a theory that we have that makes sense to some people. It's not necessary. How many great saints came from traditions that don't believe in reincarnation? Right? If it's helpful, for some people it's helpful that I know that I'll realize God sooner or later. For some people it may say that why bother in this, I'll have another chance later. So it won't be helpful. For some people, the strong belief in reincarnation is identification with this lower self, with this jiva. If we want to be really hardcore Vedantists and say, I'm the Atman. The Atman is never born, it never dies. As soon as we say that when I die I'll be reborn, we're identifying with something other than the Atman. So in Gita we see these two different types of verses. One was the Atman, I was never born, I'll never die, weapons cannot cut me, this and that. And the other is, yeah, I'll give up this body, I'll take a new body, I'll go through all these different stages and everything. We can stick just with this idea that I recognize myself as something transcendent, something divine, I won't worry too much what happens. What happens is going to happen. And as long as we don't remember our past lives, then it's not like each one gets worse. Oh, I've lived so many lives. How many people can say that? I'm so tired of living. You have any idea how many lives I've lived? Yeah. So I personally don't think it's terribly important. My own personal feeling is that there's a certain logic to it. It could be. Sri Ramakrishna does not put emphasis on it. We very rarely hear him talking about it. Every once in a while they'll ask about it. He'll say, yes, there's something like that in Gita. Huh? He'll say like that. He does have a firm belief that some people are born with good qualities, good tendencies from a previous existence. We can at least feel that maybe because of something that we've done before, that we've been fortunate enough to be drawn to spiritual life, in this lifetime. But even that we don't have to believe. I don't think it's something that has to be on the checklist of the beliefs that we have. It can be on the side of opinion that way. And then we don't have to pay too much attention to it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have lunch, which is ready, Swami.
Okay.
So I have a big question for you.
Okay.
Will you please come back very soon?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful experience for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.